Hello and welcome. My name is JesseMcDesign. Today we're going to be sculpting this boar's head and coating it in plaster. Let's get started. Alright, so if you didn't see last week's video, I made this pretty large plaque thing, and then I also went ahead and just made this weird little structure piece, and we added some mounting hardware to the back of this, and there is a couple screws on here. You can kind of see them there. And then this piece simply kind of locks into place like that. So this week we're going to be working on the sculpture piece here. So what I want to do is cover this thing completely. I'm gonna tape it off first, I think, and then I'm gonna put down just a sheet of aluminum foil, and then we'll go ahead and attach my little semi-structure piece to the screws so it's nice and tight and it's gonna sit how it's gonna sit. Along with building this little piece, in between videos, which is in my time was a couple hours ago, I decided to add some of these little just random really big screws just to kind of give something for the spray foam we're gonna spray in here, something to grip on, you know, and we can kind of get it in between that little crack there, and just so it all stays together. It doesn't just end up just slipping off of this thing. And I don't really think that would happen, but just in case, I want to be sure. And honestly, if it did, I would just like glue it back together or something. So what we're going to get started with now is do all of this prep work that I was just talking about and get at least a first layer of foam sprayed down. I think I'm gonna end up having to work in, I might have to work in layers, you know, like spray out the base, wait a couple minutes, however long it might take, you know, spray it up, and then just kind of build up however tall I think I'm gonna need, and then we'll go from there. So as you can see, I had to flip this over because after the outside hardened, after a few hours, I noticed there was some leakage coming out from the bottom, and I could tell that it was still kind of soft in the center by pushing on it. So I was able to get it off the screws, and then I just flipped it over and just kind of let it harden, and I think it's pretty solid now. I also went in and just got a couple of the random spots that were kind of voids from it being all weird and stuff from not curing properly. I kind of called that at the beginning. I kind of should have just done layer by layer, but I was just kind of in the zone and I just went for it. So what we're going to do now is I bought a hot wire. I don't know if you can see this here, but we're going to use this tool. This is just like a flat wire here, and I'm going to flatten out the back of this, and then we'll go in and then flip it over. You can kind of see that it's just like a really ugly shape right now. I'm gonna rough carve just a little bit to get a better idea of where everything's gonna be. And then I also bought this rasp here, and I'm just gonna rough everything up really nice again if I don't cut into it and expose like the open porousness of it. And then we'll go in and put another layer on here to help really define those certain areas, like where the nose, the snout, and like the ears will be, because I know I'm gonna have to add that, and then like a little bit more structure to this because it didn't quite expand as much as I was expecting. First, the hot wire isn't quite as hot as I was expecting. It does put off a lot of smoke. I do suggest fans and good ventilation. I have a couple windows open and a couple fans going, but it does work awesome. I will have to mess around with these other little bits and pieces when we really get into it, but as far as this wire piece, it works real nice. And also I found that this is gonna really help smooth and really work things out when I get to that point as well. What you just saw me at the very end was I added a couple little just wire pieces just to help me visualize where these extra little bits are and where I need to add a little bit more material. I knew this was going to happen. I knew that the snout wasn't going to be quite enough, and the ears are, you know, their own thing. So what I'm going to do now is just slowly build up those little spots and just kind of continue working this a little bit more to build up more material, and then we'll come back and then really talk about how we're going to finagle this carving. So now that we got this thing a lot closer to the shape that we want, I'm gonna go back to down here on the floor. You can't really see it right now, but I have a projection up here, and then I also have another reference up here. I have a face on here, which is face on to this, and then a side profile, which is reflective of this profile. And I'm just gonna kind of work back and forth and start carving away at this thing. I think I can get most, if not all, of the features out of this thing. I'm liking where the proportions and everything are. I just have to bring everything in a little bit and add all those little details. The only really thing that might be an issue is around the lip area might be a little bit difficult. We'll see once we get into those more detailed areas. But also the tusks that are gonna be coming off of this thing, I'm gonna sculpt those separately out of like an air dry foam clay, and then we'll add those separately before we do our coating process. So let's just hop back up on this time lapse and start knocking away some material. So we're getting a little bit closer and closer. I'm really liking how it's looking right now. You kind of see there that it's starting to look like a hog's head or boar's head. I had to add some material to this side because it was a little wonky. There just wasn't quite enough material there. And then in doing this first rough carving, I noticed the snout was kind of off-centered. So I added a little bit more material over there on the snout as well. And then I just started adding these little lines. I don't know how well you can see that. There you go. Just to kind of give myself some more better reference points. You can kind of see here just the different little areas where I need, just to help get me the reference I need for when we're getting into these sort of finer details. We're getting really close. So what we're gonna do now is cut these lights again, and we're gonna project a couple different angles on here and just try to get this down to the size I want it to be. It's still a little big, I feel like. I want to be able to see some of the wood plaque that I made. Obviously, you know, I don't want it to be completely covered, so we're gonna bring it down just a little bit more, and then we're gonna start getting into all these nice little fun details. So we're starting to get into the final little details and everything. And one thing I've been kind of putting off is the main tusks and the teeth, which the teeth I'll do last. That's not really a big deal here. But I want to get these tusks in here just so I can make sure that the proportions of those are going to fit with everything else I got here. And maybe I might have to shave some of this down a little bit even further. But I just really wanted to get those in place. I did notice that this little triangle piece right here, I don't know how well you can see the illustration I got going on here, but there's a little bit here that I need to add some material to. So along with doing the tusks, we're gonna do just fill in that little space there, which isn't too big of a deal. But for the tusks, I made some little wire forms, just super simple. I don't know. Simple little things. We got ones for the bottom as well. I did those slightly different. They kind of slip in, and then they have a little piece here that I'm going to jam down into the gums of this thing, because that bottom tooth kind of flows all the way back, and then this one just kind of comes out from underneath and out. And what I'm going to use for that is just simple modeling foam clay. It's super easy to work with. It is basically foam, so if I have to do any shaping or anything, I can just do what I've been doing with this and just cut it down or add more to it or whatever I have to do. And since it is like a clay type deal, I'm going to be able to wrap it around these little wire bits and just shape it in real nice. And then for these little triangle pieces I was talking about, I think I can just kind of mold it to this piece here. I think it'll stick enough. If not, I'll mold it and then just kind of put a couple dabs of glue, just kind of hold it in place, which is plenty fine. So let's get on to making these tusks and see what we got going on here. I'm super happy that I got these tusks in place, and I added this little filler piece to the snout-ish area. It really helped me visualize the rest that we got going on here, and that's just going to be these final little details. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's like little chunks of fur that we're going to carve in, because we're going to plaster this and some of that detail will go away. But I think when we do like the plaster coat, I will be able to use like a chip brush and just like streak in like fur texture. So that's kind of my plan, at least. So we'll see how that works out, and then we can kind of like sand around the snout and the tusks to make them smooth like they normally would be. I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna finish this yet. It probably won't be this video, it'll probably be a separate video, but that's a whole other idea. So, but now what I'm gonna do is just start marking in some of these details so I know I can get a better visual of where they're at and how they will lay and kind of flow with everything. And then we'll go in and just kind of do our final little carving of all those little fur-ish details. I want to do a little bit more with the eyes, sink them back just a tad bit more, I think. And then I also have to make the teeth. So let's just get straight into it and see if we can't finish this thing off. So there you have it. I think we're gonna stop here for now. I spent quite a bit of time getting to this point. The plaster was quite a bit messier than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be messy, but it kind of hardened up a little bit faster than I was liking. Maybe I got like a little too fast of a set plaster type deal. Maybe next time I'll go for a more slow cure if they have something like that. But other than that, I just slowed down or made my batches a little bit smaller. Normally it's 2 to 1, so I was going for a full cup of water to 2 cups of plaster, and I wasted quite a bit on the first 2 there. So I just cut it down to like a third or a half a cup of water and a full to like 3/4 cup of the plaster, and that mixture worked well enough that I was able to work it in, and I wasn't really wasting any at that point. But right now it's still a very messy thing that we got going on here. So in the next episode, and why I'm gonna stop it here, is we're gonna sand this whole thing down one more time, which I don't think will take too long. This plaster's, I think it's pretty soft once we get in there and start wet sanding it and stuff. And everything's already here. We're just kind of going back and smoothing everything out. And if any little holes appear, we can just kind of patch those as we'll go. And then I haven't quite decided yet how we're gonna paint this. My original thought was like a realistic painting with texture and everything. Then I thought maybe like a solid color, black or white, or maybe something fancy, gold or silver would be kind of cool, and I can just swap it out every however often. Or I could get super crazy and do like a fur thing, but I don't think I'm gonna get that crazy. But if you like what you saw, hit the thumbs up, it really helps. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe. If you want to see me finish this thing, hit the notification bell and come back for the next video. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.